And Morgan is recording now. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:30. Consent agenda, previous minutes. Any discussion, questions, changes need to be made? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Rick. By roll, Amy?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes. Next up is policy. These are first reads, correct, Lynn? I don't see it on here.
Yes, they're first reads.
Okay, so D14, drug and alcohol testing, transportation employees. Any comments, questions on those? Move on to E8, collection of delinquent meal charges. Anything on that one? G6, animal dissection. This one's up your alley, Rick. I figured you'd have something on that one.
No, I thought it was fine.
G12, title comparability. Nothing. And then removal of E8P, Sheldon Meal Procedure, G10, class rank, valedictorian, salutatorian policy, and H1, parent involvement.
Yeah, why? Yeah, my only question was why was a Sheldon thing on there?
It's because when they came to us, they were still in a food service program that had some kids paying. So they weren't in Provision 2 or CEP. And so we still needed a policy per federal regs to make sure that parents paid.
Okay.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve. There's no other questions.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Amy. Rick?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And Kevin is an aye. Motion carries. Agenda preview and prioritization. Lynn, Morgan, anybody need to shuffle anything around?
So I have something under student and I would like to put it right, sorry. I'd like to put it right after the school spotlight if I could.
Okay. I will do that. Recognition of visitors.
So you have nobody in the room. You've got a couple people who are still coming in. Heidi Tessier is one who did ask to address the board under public comment. And I'm messaging the other two to see if they want to as well.
Okay. Heidi, the floor is yours. You've got a couple minutes.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to address the board about students being able to go to the Enosburg High School during the school year, which I know it's typically not something that's encouraged. But when one student wants to go to the Enosburg High School, when the student is currently enrolled in Richford High School, I'm just wondering why that can't happen during the school year when ultimately it's the same supervisory union that the child is in. So really that's my question and concern. And yeah, I mean, I think if a student wants to go to a different high school, that they should be allowed to, whether it's during an open enrollment or not, especially if this person's having difficulties at the school and they would excel at a different high school for sure.
Okay, there is policy, if I'm correct on that, right, Lynn, that we adapted?
So there isn't policy. You have policy for elementary school choice. So the only thing that we have to go on is state statute when it comes to high school. So it's Act 129, public high school choice, and that is the deadline pieces in that.
What if there's an assault on a student though? Are there clauses that, or are there amendments that can be made by the school board? If there's a direct assault on a child or on a student where it's better for the student not to be at the high school and to be at a different high school?
So
it'd be safer. Go ahead.
Heidi, the board can, hear what you just said, and they can consider policy for the future, but they're not going to talk about an individual case in open meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
So Kevin, I see a Rachel and a Wendy. Neither have replied to comments. I don't know if they can see the chat or if they're interested in speaking. If they are, they should probably state their name for Jane for record keeping.
Okay.
Hi, this is Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
How are you guys?
Good, you?
Good. So I'm here with Clayton. We want to talk together, I guess. I can go first.
Wendy?
Okay, Wendy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
So you're coming under student. In my agenda, we're not there yet. Right now, we're under public comment.
Okay, so am I not ready?
Hold tight.
Okay.
We'll get to you.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Rachel, are you interested in speaking? That's Rachel Reynolds. So I'm guessing not.
Sorry, guys. And I my video off. I have a sick, screaming baby, and I'm also contact tracing. I apologize during the meeting, so I'll be on the phone here and there.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so no other visitors that I can see. There's still none in the public space, correct, Morgan?
That is correct.
Okay, so on to school spotlight, and that's you, Jen.
I'm excited to welcome Tanya Caswell and Amanda Collins. They have worked with their students on preventing bullying, and they are going to do a presentation for you.
Okay, so hi, my name is Tanya. This is Amanda, my amazing teaching partner. We do teach 4th grade in Enosburg. Is there any way that we can share our screen? Do I have that permission?
You should now.
Okay. I'm sorry, hold please. Okay. Pull it up. Sorry. This is exactly what I was worried about.
That's okay. This is every single meeting.
True story.
Okay. It should. No. What if we click on it? Okay.
It should be. Can you see our presentation?
Yes.
Now we can.
Yay. Well, I don't know how we're getting out of here, but here it is. Okay. So a few years ago, when I was teaching 2nd grade, I actually found this great resource to teach a unit about bullying to my 7- and 8-year-olds. So there's this website put out by Pacer, and they actually have a year-long curriculum all around bullying. But this year, with this particular group of students, it was pretty obvious early on that the years of COVID instruction has definitely had an impact with their interpersonal skills and how they interact with each other. So Amanda and I thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss what bullying is and how we could bring awareness to our social behaviors that we're having in class. So we decided to focus on the positive. We had a lot of good class discussions, and we realized that almost every fourth grader felt that they had experienced bullying at some level. So we decided to focus and have this as our central question for our fourth graders. So how can kindness, acceptance, and inclusion help end bullying? So this went really well with a read aloud that Amanda had been doing for a few years with fourth graders. She always read Wonder with them at the beginning of the year. So this is really the big themes that are also in that read aloud. So it paired really nicely. When I joined the team last year, I also read my class Wonder. And so this year we're allowed to reference that as well when we were teaching this unit. And our next read aloud that we're doing is called Fish in a Tree, which also works a lot around acceptance as well. So this is the curriculum that I'm talking about, and the website will be right in the slideshow if you guys are interested in checking it out. Pacer, like I said, offers a year-long curriculum, but this year we just focused on their October curriculum, which would allow us to celebrate Unity Day on October 20th and focus in on the 4 principles of kindness, inclusion, acceptance, and unity. So here is what the October curriculum allowed us to do. It also allowed under that planning section for students to come up with a way that they wanted to celebrate what they learned and for us to hold that celebration on October 20th. It also gave us a great anchor point to reflect as we're going through the year what we had learned. So the first thing we did was talked about the 4 different kinds of bullying. And Amanda and I were both really impressed that the students felt safe enough with us and this early in the school year to share their experiences that they have had with bullying. And when we talked about the 4 different types of bullying, we talked what that might look like for students, especially going forward. That online, that social media piece, we all know what that's like. So I have several students in my room now who are already on social media platforms at 10 years old. So we want to make sure that we have that discussion pretty early with them. So we first introduced these 4 words, kindness, inclusion, acceptance, and unity. And we talked about how they might help us prevent bullying. But first we needed a working definition. So Amanda and I had purchased each of the kids their own dictionary because kids don't really know how to use those. So we looked up the words in dictionary, we discussed the dictionary definition and then tried to come up with a working definition for ourselves. And then the task was that each kiddo would have to either draw a picture that represented what that word meant or come up with an icon that an app might use if they was teaching about that concept. So Amanda and I this year have 4th grade team time every Wednesday afternoon where we combine the entire 4th grade as a team and do team building things with them because this is the class that they're going to be with their entire school experience. And we used one of those team times to talk about Unity Day. And this was right from the website. They used this organizer. So we had the kids decide how they wanted to share what they learned with the community. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
So that was all of our planning and prep. So this is how we actually implemented it. Tanya and I chose to purchase the orange shirts like Tanya and I are wearing right now for the adults in our classrooms. And then we also purchased white t-shirts that Tanya then dyed orange for all of our students to decorate in some way. Unfortunately, we were having so much fun, we didn't take very many pictures of the shirts. So we have just the one sample to show you tonight, but they did look pretty awesome. We also decided as a group, the fourth graders were really pumped up about it, and they wanted to continue with celebrating it and bring it to the whole school and not just within our 2 classrooms. So they decided that we were going to do a parade around our school, which led to the discussion of how are we going to send out our message around the school. So we started creating these posters that are now up around the school on the hall walls. And then this is an example of a few students chose to make their posters kind of like a pact. And they had the entire fourth grade sign them to show that we are united. And this is the task that we're challenging the school. We also created a banner for our parade. That's our top picture that we carried. And then we also had one student who came up with the catchphrase, "Be a buddy, not a bully." And that was what we chose to chant during our parade. So on October 20th, which was an absolutely gorgeous day, we were able to hold our Unity Parade. So we were able to walk around the entire school. We offered classes to come join us out in the playground and outside to cheer us on. And most of the classes made it out, and those that didn't, they were in the windows. So it was a really great turnout for our class. We also the students actually decided they wanted to include the whole school. So the week of October 20th, students chose to create their own scripts about what we're working on and what our vision is. And so every morning during morning announcements, they all made an announcement each day about what we're doing and inviting them to join us for the parade on the 20th. Do you want me to share the video?
I think so.
Okay. So it was really cute, and they were really, really involved in it. And then at the very end, moving on, we ended the parade and the rest of the school went back in. And it was actually, luckily, October 20th was on a Wednesday, so it was our team time anyway. So we decided to celebrate as a fourth grade by playing kickball, which was really cool. So we got the one picture of the entire fourth grade in our orange shirts. And while we were playing kickball, there were some middle schoolers that were out. And they were asking us why we were wearing orange. And the fourth graders all took the initiative to inform the middle schoolers why we were wearing orange and what October 20th was for us. Are there any questions about what we did?
Awesome. It's such a powerful message. It's so nice to see examples of the really great work that's happening with our students. I think we're kind of in a place where if we're not careful, we could think and focus too much on that deficit mindset piece and the response to the pandemic. So I know I certainly appreciate you bringing such powerful, positive work to the board to share. Thank you both.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us share.
Have a great night. Thank you. So Kevin, I do have something, as I said earlier, under student issue, is going to be appropriate for executive session.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to enter executive session for a student matter.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mort. Polly?
Aye.
Welcome, by the way. Amy?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Who do you want in the waiting room and who do you want in executive session? And you are out of executive session.
I move to give Lynn authority to act as per executive session regarding the student issue.
Okay, motion made by Polly, by roll, Amy,
Aye.
Mort,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So motion carries. So back to the agenda. Morgan, you said we have a new visitor, Jared Valancourt. Would you like to speak? Jared?
I know the other night Jared had an issue, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Morgan, I think there was an issue with the microphone.
He just messaged me and said, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is you, Morgan.
Great. The first two items on my list are informational. The financial update. I did send out your October financial report by email. Happy to answer any questions on that. Also, the tuition student update is informational. Just briefly want to say that's good news there, certainly compared to what we felt last year. And kudos both to Beth and Allison Witherspoon for increasing the number of VTVLC kids that are attending through that program. Right now I've billed out 9. I understood from a conversation earlier with Beth, I think the end of last week, that you may have a few more kids enrolling in that. So that's a great way to backfill the tuition kids that were lost when Fairfield joined with Maple Run. Any questions on either of those before I get to budget development? Okay. I included the important dates in your board packet. The first number to drop that has a big effect on the tax rate is the tax commissioner's proposed yield rate. We will have that before your next board meeting. The second big number that drops is the equalized pupils numbers. It's unlikely that we're going to have that before your December board meeting. So we will be hopefully at that meeting going into depth on the expense side of things, but we probably won't really be able to start looking at tax rates just yet.
So right now you got us spending $4 million less. Did you know that?
Yeah, there's still a little work to be done on the budget. Thanks, Rick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you kind of a speed walkthrough, primarily just so you're familiar with the format, and then you can feel free to ask me any questions now or offline on the content. But yeah, as Rick has pointed out, this is still very much a work in progress. So let me just share my screen. And you should now be seeing annual report expenditures. And you do have this in your packet or by email as well. So similar to your monthly board reports, it's split out much the same way. This first column is your fund. And for the budget, you're only going to be looking at your general fund. I've got it then split out by location. So it goes through each of your 5 schools and then a district level recap. Your level is either pre-K, K through 12, or adult ed for Cold Hollow. And then it is split out by program and by function. And these are the sort of most detailed levels that you see in your monthly reports. So here we're looking at Enosburg Elementary, regular ed, pre-K direct instruction, then pre-K special ed. And then we'll go through their K-12 regular education, and then categories like guidance, library, principal, plant, etc. You have more detail now in this account column. And just briefly, anything that starts with a 51 is a salary line item. So those numbers are generated by the list of people that we go over. Anything with a 52 is a benefit on those salaries. So again, those are really going to be driven by how many people you hire back or add each year. Once you get beyond that, you'll see a bunch of different categories, which is the stuff and the services that that you have a little more discretion on for budgeting. So in this first line here that I've highlighted, purchase services from Public Vermont LEA, this is the cost to buy back half of your early ed teacher from the SU. That teacher has a special ed endorsement, so they have to be paid out of the SU, but only half of their time is devoted to special ed, and so Michelle's budget. So you'll be buying them back here to get it into your local budget. You'll see similar codes like that for Richford Elementary, where they're sharing a guidance counselor and a librarian with Montgomery Elementary, and so we have to pay those both out of the SU. And then for things like your SROs, who are purchased from Franklin County Sheriff's Office, or NCSS workers who are purchased from them. I'm going to jump down to direct instruction here for Enosburg Elementary. This is where you'll start seeing costs for things like supplies. You'll see those again in plant. You'll see them a little bit under your school nurse, general supplies there, a little bit under your principal category. And for supplies for general ed and for technology, what I've done again this year is to apply a formula based on the number of kids. And then as I have further conversations with the principals, if they look at something and think that something is too shy, we will bump that up. I will go through and do a similar formula for things like substitutes, for things like elementary school athletics, elementary school field trips, and then tuition reimbursement for your teachers. When we get down to plant, operation of buildings, there's a lot of big ticket items in here. For things like utilities, I will look back at past history and make a guess at what we're going to spend next year. Each of the buildings will have a fairly good sized repair maintenance budget here that tends to be brought over historically from year to year. Now that we have hired someone to look SU-wide at facilities, I'm hoping we'll have enough time to have them through all the buildings and taking a quick peek at this budget and giving me any course corrections. Time-wise, that may be a little bit optimistic this year, but going forward, that will certainly be the hope. Just going to blow through quickly the other elementary school and your two high schools follow that same pattern. And then we'll get to the district level. Your SU assessments will come through here. There's a little bit of money here for the Monteith House, as in past years. Tuition paid to other entities for you is primarily pre-K kiddos that are accessing Act 166 school choice. Those eventually will end up here. The amount of money you contribute to the after-school program, as well as in this district level. And then finally, Cold Hollow, which follows the same format as roughly as the high schools. They have an extra section for their adult ed program. So I know not going into detail there yet, but that is what you are looking at. And I will certainly do my best, Rick, to add at least another $4 million to the budget before your December meeting. I don't anticipate that's going to be.
I liked it the way it was.
I'm sure you did. So I'm going to also quickly share the second document that I sent to you. This also went out to principals, but they only got a look at it this morning. So there's probably a lot of corrections here. But this is a list by school of what staff you have in the building anticipated for next year. So they're looking through it now to make sure that I haven't forgotten anyone. One thing that I wanted to tip to you that this program does differently than iVisions is if you look at this FTE column and Joanne Allen, for example, she is listed as a 1.0 FTE because throughout the district, we have her full-time. In her direct instruction budget, she's only half-time because she is half-time unified arts and half-time school librarian. So the percent distribution really should be backing out some FTE here, but for whatever reason, the system doesn't recognize that. So if you look just at the total FTE column, it's going to be a little bit high. You will see one thing that this does that I was not able to do in your old system is that when we know that we've got, say, an NCSS worker who's part of your local budget, I can now put them in here with an FTE or those amounts that we're billing back from the SU. So my hope is that it's going to be a better tool for principals to make sure that we're not losing anyone between now and when you've warned your budget. You'll also see TBHs in here. And once we've really finalized this list, I'll be able to walk you through with each of the principals on who is a new hire and who is filling somebody that was in the budget that we haven't been able to fill yet or that has left recently. So any questions on that layout?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So when we report to the state, do we report those numbers on there or can you adjust the full-time equivalents? You know, when they...
Yeah, we do not report to the state that higher inflated number.
Okay, all right. So we don't use that template to do that.
Nope, that's just for your purposes.
Okay.
So seeing no other questions on that, and again, I am certainly happy to answer any questions offline as well. And I will try to get your next draft out to you a little bit earlier. I do want to share one other screen with you. This is some information that we shared with the Supervisory Union Board, and I offered to bring it back to the local boards since not everyone sits in on that. If you look at this graph on the right, these are actual enrollments through FY22 and then projections through FY26. So you can see here for each of the schools, you've got a line. This top one in red is Enosburg High School. Yellow is Enosburg Elementary. Green is Richford High School, which is a little bit lost by Enosburg Elementary because their trend is up, but started at one of their lower points in recent history. Richford Elementary is in blue. Enosburg Middle is in purple. So you can see the general trends over the last 5 years and then what we're projecting going forward. One thing that I would point out is that the FY21 numbers in a lot of places were down. So you'll see Richford Elementary had a drop here. I don't know if I can highlight the point, but 2021 is right in the middle of that bar. 2021 was the main COVID year. And so we saw a dip, 2020, we saw a dip throughout the SU. And what I can do is scroll up here. You'll see 2020 here in this column for the district as a whole was 1051. And this is October 1, 2020, which is the FY21 year. So that was a relatively low point in recent history. You'll see from 2012, going back that far, the district was at 1158. We're now at 1106. So a general drift downward. We are certainly still hearing of families that are keeping their kids out due to COVID, either because you are too restrictive or you're not restrictive enough. So as we get back to some semblance of normalcy, I would anticipate that these numbers will drift up again. And then the last point I'll make on that is that because of how we fund education in Vermont, you basically will get whatever money the voters ask for from the state based on the budget that is passed. The COVID lower numbers for 2020 and 21 are going to impact your equalized pupils rate, which impacts your tax rate out for 22, 23, and 24. There was a statute passed in 2020 that held harmless the drop that everybody saw in COVID numbers that year. I will keep you guys posted. I'm not sure off the top of my head whether we get another year of that or if the legislature has to take action, and whether they're contemplating doing that for 2021 as well, assuming that everyone in the state is seeing those lower numbers.
My understanding, Morgan, that they have to take it up again.
Yep. And again, this is not free money. It's really there to protect districts that saw more of a loss than other districts. So I think that's all I've got for screen sharing. I don't have anything else on my agenda. Plan on December being a pretty deep dive into the details of the budget. We'll probably first go through the moving people as we usually do, and then we'll go through some of the assumptions that I have in terms of the remaining 10%, the stuff that we spend that's not tied to people.
So you mentioned the facilities manager. We filled that position, or it still has to?
That position has been filled. It's been filled at the SU level. So you will not see that directly in your budget. You'll just see that as part of the SU assessment. But he has accepted, and I believe he's starting 2 weeks from yesterday.
And who is it?
Vern Boomhover.
Yay! Okay, good.
Okay, you're all set, and Morgan?
I have no others.
Okay. Thank you, and we'll look forward to next month adding $4 million.
Sounds good.
Next up is Lynn.
Let's not look at it as adding $4 million.
It's not there. It's not on the report, so it doesn't exist.
That way you're not disappointed when you see it. Okay.
Right.
So I'll start with personnel. There were a couple of changes since I sent it out. There was an error that I noticed that have been corrected. So I'll do informational under hiring. You have, they're all support staff, so there is no need for a motion. My one question is about technology. Morgan, in Richford, does that fall under support staff, or is that something I need to have the board make a motion for?
Support staff.
Okay. So that's all the same as what was in your report. We've hired Dorothy Gilbar as a paraeducator at Enosburg Elementary, Amanda Connolly as a paraeducator at the high school, Ashley LaFoe, a paraeducator at Richford Elementary, Cody Robarge, an evening custodian. Adam Barkley is beginning as the technology coordinator at Richford High School, and Tanya Jacobs is food service at Richford High School. That's an SU position. In terms of resignations, we had some mid-year resignations from professional staff that we don't usually see. So we've lost 2 of our teachers. Nicole Horrigan, who she's an SU employee, but she's done speech and language pathology at Enosburg Elementary for a number of years, has resigned effective November 10th. And James Wall, the health teacher at Enosburg High School, has resigned effective November 17th. So those are considered broken contracts because they're leaving mid-year. So I don't think in that case, Morgan, that we would need board action on those, correct?
I don't think you need board action.
I deal with that at my level. The other resignation is Shauna McAllister as a paraeducator at Richford Elementary School. We have our first retirement notification of the year. And I want to say with mixed emotions that Joseph Donram has announced that he will be retiring at the end of this school year. Joseph has come in and he began his career as a principal in Enosburg. I think, is this year 3, Joseph?
Yes.
So it's year 3, and he is, talk about a heck of a 3 years. You know, the timing of when we hired Joseph, we were so thankful to find Joseph, and he has done some really good work at Enosburg High School. So he is going to be missed, but we're happy for him at the same time.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
So for that one, we will need a motion from the board.
I'll make that motion, and congratulations, Joseph. I'm jealous.
So motion made by Polly. Amy?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye with regret.
Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye, and again, congratulations, Joseph. And so the motion carries.
Okay, so we have some open positions still. We have a paraeducator position, behavior technician, and bus monitor open at Enosburg Elementary. At Enosburg High School, we're looking for a health teacher for second semester, the paraeducator, a behavior technician, and an athletic trainer. At Richford Elementary, we're looking for a paraeducator, a skilled behavior technician, a certified tutor, and a long-term elementary sub. At the high school, we're looking for a long-term sub in middle school English and a behavior technician. So we're still in that churn of trying to encourage people to join us in the education world. It's challenging. We don't want people to be scared away. We hope if they're thinking that they might be interested, they'll apply. It's also incredibly rewarding work to be able to work with students and teachers in our schools. So I hope people will consider. We had 3 things under my student agenda. The second piece is, Kevin, I think you received the second part directly. So there was a request around an exchange student.
She emailed the whole board directly, but I had a conversation with her prior to the email. I don't know if everybody read the email or not.
Do you want to give the context, Kevin?
Yeah, so the student currently is enrolled in Enosburg, was living with a host family in Montgomery that lost their water like 2 or 3 weeks into school beginning. So now the student lives with the coordinator who lives in Richford and is being transported to Enosburg. Not sure exactly how, but so it's becoming an issue. So she's still trying to find a alternate host family or a third host family if possible, but the student would like to attend Richford High School. And that's where the request came from, where the student sent us the letter based on what I had recommended to her to write a letter to the board so we could all see it and understand what was going on. But I did have a pretty candid conversation with her about the requests, and that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the policy changed from 4 to 5. And that year in Richford, we had, I believe there was 9 exchange students at one point. And how precedent setting this would be if we went with this decision to accept. And I told her personally, my opinion at that point was no. And she didn't argue with me. She was actually acceptable to that, like that. Okay, that I'm okay with that. My main reason for her was the precedent, like that 2 years from now, her or someone else could come back to us and say, well, look, you did this 2 years ago in Richford or 4 years ago in Richford. Especially, and my point to her was especially because we already increased it from 4 to 5. That's my stance, is to say no. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's my opinion.
The one piece of this that's a little bit different is they're not asking permission to start a year in Richford. The student, through no fault of their own circumstance, changed, and they're now living in Richford unexpectedly. And so the request is based on that. So it isn't like an initial request. So the precedent could be specific to this if you do choose to allow.
That's kind of my feeling. I mean, the fact that her host family lost water, and it sounded like it was for close to a month, if not a little bit longer. So that's completely out of her hands. So I see it as a little different. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the rest say. I'm kind of okay with it, based on the fact that it's out of her control. Or even the original host family's control. It wasn't like they were like, yeah, we don't want a host family or a hosted child anymore, good luck. It was really kind of, out of everyone's control that this happened. So, but yeah.
So to kind of further, and my opinion also is like, we're not the ones coordinating to find the host families. Like, that should be the coordinator's responsibility, knowing that the policy is we can't have more than 5 in a building, in our school district, which is Richford High School and Enosburg High School. So I don't think it should be put on us to accept. I think it should be put on the EF or whoever the company is that is accepting these to bear the burden of responsibility and find a host family. If she's in Enosburg, so they've got Berkshire, Enosburg, Bakersfield, Sheldon, there's 4-5 communities where they can pull from to find a host family. Any other board members have an opinion?
Kevin, does the original host family, did they get their water back and they go back there?
They're not on the books to get water until sometime between now and March, is my understanding.
I didn't get a chance to read the email. Is the rationale just because of the commute, Kevin? I mean, Montgomery to Enosburg versus Richford to Enosburg doesn't seem like it would
Montgomery to Enosburg is transportation provided through the school. Richford to Enosburg transportation is provided by the family that they're living with currently.
Well, she is riding the bus some, the Cold Hollow bus some. She came to see me first and said that she really wanted to transfer to Richford. And I said, I have no authority. You have to write a letter to the school board. So I think there's a few factors at play here.
It also sounded like in the letter that it was more also that she's going to start basketball. And so with the practices and the games and the family having, apparently the family, this is what the letter said, the family has students in Richford. And so that the family is now having to run her own kids and the exchange kid to Enosburg for sports, and it's starting to get a little crazy. And so she asked if she could just transfer to Richford so that it would all be there. So that was in the letter too.
More, Rick, any comment, thoughts?
I'm thinking. So I mean, I do think that this is the coordinator's kind of responsibility to find another host family. I mean, has he tried to do that? Do you know, or she?
They have. I don't know how hard. I mean, it's not for me to question them on how hard they've searched, but yes, that's my agreement. I'm in line with you on that, Rick. I think it's their responsibility.
I mean, the other. Well, I guess this is the original host family either. So I don't know, but it's. I mean, if you were the exchange student, it'd be kind of really bizarre to have the kids that you were living with going to one school and you had to attend another school.
And it was meant to be temporary, is how it was worded to me. So I don't know. I think the kid would be okay if they found that. I guess would be the third home. It's just a matter of getting the direction and finding it as soon as possible.
I feel bad for the kid because they're getting caught in the crosshairs, but at the same time, I do feel like as often, if we open this up too far, we do have policy for how many kids are at each school, and the program has to kind of absorb that pressure of if they have something fall through, they're going to have to figure it out. I feel really bad for this specific kid, but I think that if we open it up, it can complicate future kids' experiences as well.
Yep.
I'm kind of good with a no.
I'm with Amy in the fact that I do feel really bad for the kid if they do find a third home and they've been moved around. Yeah, that makes me sad, but I also understand that we do have that policy, and yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Okay. Mort?
I'm a no.
Okay. And I'm a no as well. So do you need a motion, Lynn?
No, I don't need a motion.
Okay.
Just need a direction on that one. So the next one, I'm going to ask Beth to describe. So you received a request from a parent to tuition their 8th grader to Richford. We're bringing this to the board because we don't have a policy where we typically accept tuition students. So this is something that the board's going to have to make a decision on as well. So Beth, could you help give them context?
I sent you an email with a request from Edward Powers. He's moving to Jay. They're buying a house in Jay. They have 2 high schoolers currently that they want to send to Richford under the Universal School Choice Act. They have an 8th grader who, because they are moving to Jay, they're part of the middle school union school district, and the student would be going to Derby to North Country Junior High. They wondered if we would consider letting the family pay tuition for the remainder of the year for the student to attend 8th grade in Richford, because they want him to go to high school here, and that would be one less transition for him. And so they gave you more details that they are a military family. They've moved around a lot. They're really looking to reduce the number of transitions. and they feel it would be beneficial for him individually.
So one of the things to note just around the 129 is we have that firm March deadline. However, we have had, if a situation changes for a family, so if a family moves and that wasn't, you know, they weren't aware of that at that time when they moved, they can ask for at the time of that big transition. And we just have to make agreements between the two schools. So I think that part's already done, Beth, correct? Just regarding the high school piece.
Yes, yes. I've already talked with Chris Young and their superintendent.
Okay, given the circumstances, I mean, it's.
So I got a question. So is this even legal?
Yeah, I don't know if Morgan has anything he wants to say about this. It's legal. You have the authority to choose to accept. The parent would be paying the tuition, so that's why you're having to discuss it, because typically it's a school district paying a tuition and not a parent.
Well, Lynn said.
So they're paying tuition and providing transportation as well, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes, they're providing transportation. Yes.
So you could, if you get accepted to another school in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you can pay tuition to that school directly?
If they'll accept you, you can.
Really?
How is that equitable?
But it's a lot of money.
There's some things wrong with that, I think.
Well, it's no different than paying to send somebody to private school.
But it's public school.
You can do it. I know that we had, when I was in Montgomery, we had people approach us. We said no, but Stowe accepted them, and those students went to school in Stowe, and Stowe accepted the tuition money for them.
If that were the only inequitable thing about education in Vermont.
I know, but I just have a hard time wrapping my head around, if a family can afford to do that, we'll accept them. If a family can't afford to do that, we don't accept them. That just feels like it's outside of what our vision is here.
I'll say what I always tell you when you're trying to make decisions like this is you have to think about, you know, this, like what are you basing your decision on in terms of whether or not you accept the student?
Well, and it's he's asking for the rest of the year, correct? Right. So, and it's 8th grade, and I do understand in the letter it says like he wants to minimize the transitions, which I understand, but most kids, not Richford, because it's a 6-12 building, but there are a lot of kids who are going to be transitioning after 8th grade to another high school, right? So that's where I'm kind of like, well, he will finish out 8th grade where he, you know, in his town, and then transition like a lot of kids in Vermont do at the end of 8th grade. That's kind of my feeling is, but I'm completely sympathetic to their situation and wanting those less transitions. But you know, a good portion of 8th grade kids in Vermont are making those transitions. So that's kind of my feeling.
My sense of the letter was that he's trying to avoid 2 transitions within 8 months of each other.
Which again, I'm definitely sympathetic to, because he's. So did he start? No, he hasn't started. They just moved. They just moved. I see.
They're just closing the house. They haven't started anywhere. I think that's why they're looking for a decision.
I got you.
And the 8th grader will come to Richford next year is what he said.
That's the plan, yes.
So it sounds like this family has really done the research, and I know that they've gone to visit Richford and they loved what they saw, and they're very interested in being a part of the Richford community. So I think that that's the you know, part of the why is that they have 2 kids that are going to be attending there, and they would really like all 3 to, because it's where all 3 are going to end up next year.
So there's already 2 kids there that are going to be there.
They will go there.
Is it a geographic thing as well? Are they in J on this side of the mountain?
I don't know. I don't know where the house is.
Because that could be a bear as well. Any other thoughts, board members? Yay, nay?
We have not had an easy night of it.
We have not. I mean, I think given the circumstance, they're just barely coming here. They've done a lot of research. I think we allow it, but that's my opinion. So, and it's like he said, to minimize the transition. And if the intent is to come to Richford as a freshman.
Here's my concern is, and like you were saying, it's just like a private school, but I feel like I feel going like we're blind, like there's really no criteria. Like if we're presented this again, do we just say yes to everybody, or do we say yes to you, no to you? Like what's our criteria other than the fact that they can pay cash? You know what I mean? So that's where I'm feeling a little like lost in my decision making. I feel like I need to have more than just, I mean, if I was just going with my heart, I would say yes, absolutely. But I feel like there should be more of a process is where I'm going with that, I think.
I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to think, you know, I've been a board member for 6 years or so. Like this request has never come up. Like this is very
well no, it has come up. We just haven't have anybody who's willing to pay tuition. We've had people who have tried to move kids from one district to another in an elementary school, but we have said no because we don't have the policy for it. But this is the first time that somebody's willing to pay tuition to do that. And so that's why I'm feeling a little weird about it. But yeah,
So Polly, in the situations in the past where we've said no because no one was willing to pay the tuition, is that what we're kind of hinged on?
You've said no because your policy at that time didn't allow it, and you've had requests from outside of your district, like for kids from another district just to send their kids. So one elementary district, if they offer a grade, they cannot pay tuition for that child to go to another district that offers the same grade because there isn't a choice provision. So you didn't have any policy that would do that. They wanted you to take them kind of for no tuition, and that's not, it goes against the residency laws. So in this case, you have the ability to do it because it is not tuition from the school district, it's tuition from the parents. We do get asked this question. You know, a lot of times parents will come and say, you know, I want to transfer my child. And when we say, well, you can't because you don't live there, they'll ask, how much is it to pay tuition? And usually when we say what it is a year, they say, okay, no, thank you. So it really doesn't come up often. This is the first time since I've been superintendent, I think, that we've brought anything anywhere for this kind of request. Morgan, do you have any idea how long ago it was last time we had one of these?
I was principal in Montgomery. Morgan was on the school board.
Yeah, we had several in Montgomery, and this situation there felt a little different because we would know in Montgomery that they were then going somewhere else for high school. So I think this request is a little bit different on that front. If you had a parent say, mom lived in Montgomery and the kid went to Montgomery, and then she said, well, I want this kid to go to Richford for 8th grade now. If she came to us and said, well, his dad lives in Coventry, which has school choice for middle school, then you would just accept them. I don't even know if it would come to you as a board, and then Coventry would be paying that tuition bill. The difference here, say again?
We had a request from Berkshire, wanting to go from Berkshire to Enosburg in an elementary. And so we had the 2 different districts. But like Lynn said, we said how much the tuition was, and they said, yeah.
Well, they weren't looking to consider that for private tuition. They were looking for elementary choice within the supervisory union, and you don't have that. You have that at the district level.
Right.
Sure.
I like your thinking, Rick.
Are you in a place where you want to do a roll, Kevin?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. Mort, do you have an opinion? Yay, nay?
I'd say yeah, but I think we need to probably look at a policy down the road on that, maybe.
Agreed. Some sort of process, I think, like Polly was talking about. Amy?
I don't, I'm not on one side of the fence to the other yet. I'm sorry.
Polly?
Can we make, if we make the decision, is it fair to agree that we will not entertain any of these other any other requests until we make a policy? But I don't know. I'm starting to backpedal. I'm thinking no. I'm thinking no. I think this, in this particular situation, it makes so much sense, but I can think of so many situations where it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But so I think I'm gonna go no.
Okay. I'm a yay. Mort is a yay, pending policy. Rick is a sure, and Amy is
the tiebreaker.
I quit.
So that's a yes.
I have a hard time with us having to make decisions that are based on the who can pay and who can't pay. And I totally understand the not wanting to have multiple transitions, but they also made a decision of where and when they're moving and at what time. So did they make the decision, or do we need to make the decision from that lens of like how many transitions happen? So I'm gonna go with no.
Actually, it's 3-2.
Okay. So next up is the class size report for ERUUSD. And just the effort, because of the timing, I've emailed that to you as board members and leaders. Each of the principals gave you their class size report last month. So this just kind of puts it together so you can see school by school what your class sizes look like. So unless you want me to project it, I'll just keep moving. Are you good with that?
Keep moving, I think.
So next up is another action item. I'm sorry, I didn't plan for tonight to be so full of action. So you have the Monteith house that has been sitting empty for a while since the rec department left, and we have a need. We have a need for a specialized program in the supervisory union to help students who are really struggling within the realm of the public school. So talked to you before about when students have intensive needs, how there's kind of a continuum of what's called the least restrictive environment. So we try to meet the needs at the lowest level. And when that doesn't work, we kind of go a little more restrictive. And sometimes that results in students having to have a placement that's outside of the public school. So we're in a place right now where we don't have openings in alternative placements outside of the supervisory union. We're on a year-long wait list in a couple of places for kids who have some pretty intensive needs. So the only thing we really can do right now is build our own program. So we're building something internally, and Michelle's been working at that. It's an SU level program. And we would like to use the Monteith house for that program. So we know you had given us permission in the past to use that if we needed it for a central office space, which we don't right now. And so I'm asking if you'll consider allowing us to use that for the SU program.
I'm okay with it. Does it logistically make sense?
Yeah, I do think it logistically makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Motion made by Polly. By roll, Amy.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Mort.
Aye.
Polly.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Finally, we agree.
That was a quick one. That's great. Okay. Next up, I think I can go pretty quickly through this. You've heard me talk about this before, and you all received the most recent FNESU community update. So I won't say much about vaccination clinics. So we have 4 clinics coming up in the next several weeks. There's one change to what I sent out to you, and that's going to go out in a upcoming update. The Enosburg Elementary Clinic has been moved to the high school just because of the number of vaccines that day in the space. So Joseph has been very accommodating. That's going to be this Friday. There are some changes to the contact tracing protocol, which were in the community update. And this morning was our first day of our test to stay program. So went very well. We had a site in Sheldon at the fire station and a site in Richford at the fire station. And between the 2 sites, there were 44 students who went through and did the rapid antigen test and were able to go to school instead of quarantining today. So I count that as a success. I'm hopeful that we'll have even more students participate tomorrow. So we were pleased, very nervous. That's not usually our world to stand up things that feel very public health like, because they are. But we had help from VDH. They came on site and observed and gave us feedback and had worked logistically with us, both VDH and the AOE over the weekend. So I think it went as well as it could have gone. A couple of glitches that we've worked out. I also sent an update about winter sports and just the general update in terms of where we are with COVID right now. There's, as you all know from reading that, there is an increase in cases of COVID in FNESU. And I think there's a lot of, a lot of worry about where are those cases coming from. Is that all related to transmissions within the schools? And I just wanted to say that it's a variety of transmissions. That's one of the things we try to get at is how did the person get COVID? And a lot of what we're seeing is connected to social events outside of school. So we've seen some birthday parties, Halloween events, and we have seen some in school as well. So we've just seen a really big uptick. And if you remember right, this was the time last year where we started to see cases. As soon as the weather started to get cold, we started to get around Halloween time, and that's exactly the pattern we're seeing. It's just there are more cases this year. So we're hopeful with more testing. We stood up 2 PCR events in the supervisory union yesterday. So we're hoping that maybe caught some cases and prevented some spread. And now that we have the rapid antigen test, we're also hopeful we can catch some of those cases earlier as well. So anybody have any questions about COVID? Ready for me to keep going? Administrator negotiations. We have 4 administrators up for negotiation this year. You have Katie and Jouer, Anthony Sorrentino, Larissa Urban, and Allison Witherspoon. So you have the past couple of years had me do the negotiations with administrators, and I just want guidance from the board. Is that your intention again? And if so, do you want to give me guardrails or not? And if you do want to give me guardrails, I think that you probably should do that in executive, maybe at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I think we should do that. Guardrails at the end in executive. Anybody else agree? I see a couple head nods, so we'll do that.
Okay. Next up is a principal search process. So we'll need to begin the search for the next principal of Enosburg Falls High School. I would like to start that process early. I would like to get ahead of the hiring curve. So I'd like to advertise either later this week or early next week and take some time to gather candidates and put together a hiring process that would want to begin right after the December break. So what do you wanted feedback from the board about timeline? I'm a little worried about trying to put interviews in before the holiday break. I think right after is early enough in terms of contracts. Any concern with that timeline?
No, I think it sounds good.
Yeah, I think so.
You okay with modeling the same kind of outline of process that we used when we hired Joseph in terms of the committee and how we set it up and all of that?
I'm okay.
Me too.
If there are board members that would like to participate on a hiring committee, it would have to be 3 or less. If you want to just let me know, we can include you in that process. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. How fast I did the rest of my agenda, Kevin. I'm all done.
Nothing under other.
Nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Principals reports. Kelly, anything to add?
Nope, everything is informational.
Thank you. Beth?
All informational.
Jen?
All informational.
Rachel?
All informational, although I did mention that I can, in my first section, the celebrations and student learning, if you want to see the resources I referenced that we've been doing in terms of mindfulness to help support the student behaviors, I'm happy to pass that along to anybody. Just email me.
Okay, thank you. Joseph? You're mute.
I should think I should know by now. I have an additional student celebration. I think most of you are probably aware that our boys varsity soccer team won Division III championship after lots of blood, sweat, and tears since the season began. So I cannot express how proud and of them I am, not just for winning, but for their commitment to begin doing some really important inner work. And I think the work that we've done so far to begin that process helped them a whole lot move forward. And it's a lot of people were supportive of this team. And so I'm just so happy that things ended the way they did. It was wonderful to be at the game last Saturday and to be part of that celebration and elation. And also I want to just say how proud of them I am and of the Winooski boys for being total gentlemen and bringing their best selves to that neutral playing field in Burlington. Lynn was at the game with me, and I know that she and I were both very, very proud and of the sportsmanship and the quality of that whole event, start to finish. So I see Lynn nodding. It was a great day, wasn't it, Lynn?
It was beautiful, and it was Joseph rode home with me, and we spent a lot of time talking about all the wonderful things that we saw in the game, how hard they worked, the skill and the character that they demonstrated, and it was pretty awesome. We're very proud of them.
So that's it from my report.
Thank you. Nate.
Yeah, the only thing I have is the last part about the building project and the three different, well, there were about 6 proposals on the original, but the 3 that make the most sense. So I don't know where we want to go from here. If we want to get a group of you guys to kind of come in and do a walkthrough at Cold Hollow and really get a sense of what each one of those would entail. Or if you have questions, I'm not quite exactly sure where we want to go from here. But those are the 3, the numbers. And I got, obviously those are, about 15, 16 months ago. So prices are a little different.
Right, so they're going to be 30% higher now.
So that proposal, is that still with the plan of using the capital reserve funds or no?
Well, so I'm trying to do 3 projects at once. So the phase 2 would be using some of the capital reserve funds to tear down the red barn and do some site work for the sugar house, which is the most immediate, or one of the most immediate needs. That future site work would also have the potential for a future project, which could hold the construction lab, which would be part of a bigger building project. But I'm proposing that the capital reserve funds be used just for the tear down of the red barn and site work, and then the sugaring, a loan from the capital reserve fund that would be paid back by profits from sugaring over 7-10 years.
So my only concern, I guess, is that through my time on the board, we've been kicking cans all over the place. And so I'm just a little nervous to be here. We finally have a capital reserve fund, and to put it in a pretty big basket makes me nervous. So I guess maybe when our facilities manager gets on board to see how much our projects would cost and how much of a chunk that would take from that capital reserve fund.
Yeah, so it would take, I mean, Morgan, it would take all the capital reserve plus a lot to do. I mean, that's one of them is $4 million project, right? Isn't that, Nate, what's if we did the construction building and the complete renovation, got the solar panels out, what was that, 4.9, something like that?
Yeah, easily 5.
Yeah,
for ADA compliance and renovation of the building.
I was thinking the opposite angle, which was looking at what our other building needs are and then see what's left over, I guess is what I was kind of thinking. Just because we have been kicking cans for quite a while. But yeah, that's a big project for sure.
I think we got to look at all the cans, right? Because we're also kicking cans on the ADA compliance, and we have to figure out what we're going to do at Cold Hollow about that. And Nate, one of the things I'm not sure if he's made clear or not is he has written in his gear grant to create those outdoor learning spaces, which includes the Sugar House project, and his lease is ending where he is. So that's why he's saying it's an immediate need. And he also has an expiration on that gear money that has to be spent by September. So I think that's why he's asking you to do that with capital reserve, even if you're going to consider construction, because of that timeline.
So you're saying use the capital reserve and then that gear money would replace that? Is that what you're saying? No.
So there's different pots of money. So I have about $90,000 left in gear money that I can use for outside spaces. That would be, I believe I can use some of that for the sugar house. The sugar house money profits over the next few years would pay back the capital reserve fund to some extent for the building itself, not the site work. So there's certain things that need, like the tearing down of the red barn and the prepping of that area for a sugar house and a construction labs outdoor space would be capital reserve funds.
So what are we talking? So you got 90,000. How much would you need from the capital reserve?
Well, that's a good question. There's gonna be some other costs associated with just figuring that out. So there'll be getting Black River Design back involved, which would be a cost, and then looking at civil, mechanical, and structural engineers to figure out all the permitting, you know, all the things I don't know about, like, do you run natural gas there? How do you get stormwater runoff? Those types of things. So the initial cost is those things. So what Lynn's saying is I've got $90,000 to put towards the outside classrooms. And that might just be a structure for a construction lab. And then a construction class would build the sugar house over the next 2 years. We would need money to fund that, but that would be paid back over the course of, again, who knows how long, but we'd have to have some sort of agreement there. I do not know how much it would be out of the capital reserve fund. I would say, guessing maybe $100,000, but it could be $200,000.
So that's what I guess I kind of needed to hear is, like, are we talking $490,000 and we have 10,000 left for cans? Or are we talking $100,000 and we have a chunk of money that we could get some projects done? I guess that's what I needed to hear, is how much of that capital reserve were you eyeing? But that helps.
I think that concern is important, Polly, and I think the only downside is the missed opportunity of some other projects you could get done immediately. Certainly, you never see the opportunity to have the capital reserve fund paid back. I mean, that's a great opportunity. I wonder if the conversation around the capital reserve fund needs to come after are we spending $1 million or 4 million or 10 million?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is a can we've been kicking too. So I mean, I'll be honest, I am not good at spending money. So I will need, you know, I'm wondering if, like I said, if you guys wanted to come in and kind of just take a look at the building and what the problems are of the building and what the cost would be associated, would be a good next step, and kind of walk you through like the site work as far as, you know, the construction lab space, again, that I could use gear money for, the sugar house, which we definitely need within 2 years that we would pay back, and then the Cold Hollow building itself. So I don't know if there's a time where we could do that in the near future, but I think that would be a good visual at least. And maybe we wait for 2 weeks when Vern's on board, and we do it, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There are basically two big-ish school projects that are going to be top of his list, and this is the bigger of the two. So I would say, give us a day to get him a computer and an email account, and then day 2 we can send him out to Cold Hollow.
That sounds like a plan. The other thing is, and Morgan, you can refresh my memory, but we have a $500,000 payment that we make the last payment this year on. Is that correct?
The last payment is this, the budget that we're working on.
Okay.
Yep. So FY24, we're in Happy Town.
So that's all for me. And Morgan, maybe maybe you can arrange that meeting with Vern on day 2.
Sounds good. And what board members want to be involved in that, or do you want me to put it out to everyone and up to the first 3 can come?
Sounds like a plan.
Or you can all
Okay.
come and you can warn it.
True.
Yeah, I'd love to have everybody there, like the public. They could all come too.
Well, except COVID. Let's maybe
Careful what you wish for.
Turn a
Well,
camera.
we can get a pretty good sense by staying outside.
Yeah, true.
Okay, thanks, Nate. We'll schedule a time and we'll gather there to see the need. Next up, board business.
Kevin, before you go to that, you do have Gab on. Gab is.
Oh yes.
So she joins all of our board meetings. I don't know if there's anything she just wanted to tell this board or not, or if you had any questions for her.
Sorry, Gab, I missed you.
She's the one principal that falls under the supervisory union, so it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
I don't have anything specific to add, but certainly willing to answer any questions if people have any.
Yeah.
Anyone with anything?
I'm wondering if you could tell them just about the tuition stuff we talked about the other day.
Oh boy.
You don't have to give real numbers, but just the sense that we talked about.
For which grade levels? For K6?
I think for
high school. Yeah, so our high school numbers are pretty big right now. We've got about 20 students doing the Flexible Pathways Academy. And what Lynn and I talked about around that is that for the high school program, we have a lot of tuition schools, and we also could take tuition from anywhere. So, and because there's a virtual option for that, the high school option doesn't have to be virtual. It can be virtual, it can be hybrid, or it can be fully in person. Because there's that flexibility, it's sort of it's got some potential. And Maggie and I have a pretty good system going for it at this point. So I think that's what we were talking about.
We have seen some people who outside of our supervisory union express some interest in the FPA, both at the elementary, because Morgan tipped earlier about kids, some districts have tuition in lower grades as well, because they don't offer them. So if they are in a non-operating town, they don't have middle school, or maybe they don't have an elementary school, their kids have choice in most of those cases, and they could choose our Flexible Pathways Academy, and the community would pay tuition to it. So we're starting to see a little bit of that, is what we're trying to say.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully we get more. Board business. Next meeting is December 14th. Can we talk about location? Do we want to continue virtual? Do we want to go back to in-person in a school building? Do we want to go back in person in the emergency services building? Anybody have any thoughts?
I would like in person in the emergency building, I think.
I would support that. I don't feel comfortable bringing it back to the school if people aren't going to follow the school guidelines, but the emergency services building might definitely be an option. But I would be entertain that.
I see a head nod at Amy.
Yeah, I'm fine with the emergency services building.
Mort, any?
I'm good with it.
Okay, can we schedule in person there December 14th then?
You're all full of surprises tonight.
I mean, we're still going to have the hybrid model. I'm assuming there's still going to be.
People could join that way.
Some people could join electronically if they wanted to.
Okay.
And it's how we were doing them in person to start the year. So I think we can try to go back to in person, see how it works. SU board representative report.
What did we do? Oh gosh, I don't know.
2 spotlights. One was Michelle Irish talking about educational equity. And you also had Melissa Wood talking about preschool, if you want to talk a little bit about those 2. Or I could. So
yes.
your pre-K, Melissa Wood is our early childhood program director, and she came in and just gave the board kind of an overview of what she's been working on and what she's been kind of unpacking in terms of opportunities. And we definitely looked at it through the lens of equity in terms of opportunity within each of our communities, and trying to just make sure that we're offering an appropriate level of opportunity for all of our students. So that was one piece of it. And Michelle Irish definitely presented to the board information around some of the work we're doing, focusing on educational equity throughout the supervisory union. That's recorded, so you're welcome to go back and take a look at that. She was able to weave in some data and some of the why we're doing some of the work that we're doing. We also looked at equity through the lens of nursing. And we made a motion, we added a 1 full-time nurse within the supervisory union. So now instead of Bakersfield and Montgomery sharing a nurse, wait, am I getting my board meetings mixed up? Might be.
That's where I was at. I was mixing my wires.
That might have been NMB. But anyway, one of the things that was important to the SU board in their feedback to me post-merger was continue this work, thinking through the lens of equity and opportunities. And we have been really trying to focus our lens that way, and really looking critically and strategically at all of our students, because that's our goal. Our goal is not let's try to do our best by most of our students. It's let's do our best by all of our students. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to look hard at what we're offering to all students, and what their experiences are in our schools. So the reports were pretty centered on some of that.
Yeah, because I remember the early childhood, she talked about the offerings across the district and how she did like an audit and found out that some were offering more time options than other schools, and how could she better align so that more families could access. I remember, am I saying that correctly? Yeah.
And then as a result of that, at the NMV meeting, they voted to add a pre-K teacher in Sheldon for next year. So I was getting some of my meetings, like the pre-K teacher and the nurse, that came at the NMV meeting, not the SU.
Okay, thank you. Any future agenda items?
So I have, it's not a future agenda, but I need to, if I still have Jen and Morgan, the email around the stormwater permit. Morgan, were you going to respond to that? Was I going to respond to that? Was Jen going to respond to that?
Eventually I can respond to it. It's not quite on fire yet, but I will try to get to that.
Okay, because I didn't mind responding. I just didn't have some information like dates and what have you. Okay.
Yep. No, I will get to it.
Okay. Anything under other?
So, I do have one thing for executive session. Maybe we can do it quick right now, maybe.
We're going in for personnel.
Yep.
For the negotiations.
This is different personnel, and I would like just board members.
Okay. So can we do, I don't care how we do it. Which one we do
Let's
first?
do Lynn's personnel first, and then you can move people around easier, I think.
Okay. So motion to enter executive for negotiations, personnel negotiations. I'll entertain that.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Can we leave, or do you want us to stay and wait?
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night. So, did anybody make a motion to enter?
I'll move.
Okay. Amy?
Aye.
Mort? Rick?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we will enter for personnel.
And you are out of executive session.
Okay, out of executive, or I need a motion to direct Lynn as per executive session, correct?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Rick. Polly?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And Rick?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And then Rick, you want a motion to enter executive, right?
Yes, motion to enter executive for personnel.
Okay, Amy?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Record, Paul? Okay, so we are back with no motions pending from the executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Polly?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Have a good night at
Everybody have a good night.
8:33.
Everyone.